are three of my colleagues: Louise Harris, an accountant on the dealer team; Susan Pollack, an accountant on the portfolio manager team; and also Navina Pachiva, an analyst in the strategy and operations branch. This is our standard disclaimer slide. I'm going to give you a few moments to read through it. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This webinar is going to walk you through areas of the online questionnaire which have been challenging for registrants in the past. We will highlight some frequently asked questions in each section of the questionnaire. The objective is to assist you to fill out the questionnaire and to answer some of the questions that you may have. We attempt to do this by covering off the following topics in today's agenda. Part 1 of the agenda will cover the purpose of the questionnaire. Part 2 will highlight the areas to pay attention to when you are navigating the questionnaire. Part 3 will cover some common questions that we came across in the past in each section of the questionnaire. Part 4 will cover the spreadsheet to collect data for the non-prospectus qualified funds. Part 5 is a slide that summarizes the resources that are available to you in completing the questionnaire. And if you have other questions, please feel free to email them to us. We will address the questions at the end of our presentation. The purpose of the questionnaire is to gather information about our registrants for the purposes of risk ranking the firms and selecting the firms for compliance reviews so that we can allocate our resources efficiently. Just a reminder that if you haven't done so yet, we would really appreciate if you can confirm that you have received the questionnaire. You can do so by clicking the link in the email that we sent you on May 18, 2016. Otherwise, we will need to follow up with you in the near future. With that, I'm going to pass the presentation to Louise, who's going to demonstrate how to navigate the questionnaire.
Each firm has been sent a unique URL link to their customized 2016 RAC. The link will provide access to the RAC even after the questionnaire has been submitted. However, we encourage all firms to save and print a copy of the submitted RAC for their own records. We advise firms to only share the URL link with people at your firm who are authorized to view and complete the RAC. Many people are able to use the URL link to access the RAC simultaneously. However, only one person will be able to save inputted data at a given time. So please keep this in mind when sharing the RAC link. The questionnaire has 5 sections, which are to be completed according to your firm's categories of registration. The general section must be completed by all registrants. The IFM section is for investment fund managers. The PM section should be completed by both portfolio managers and restricted portfolio managers, and the EMD section has questions for exempt market dealers and restricted dealers. The comment section is available to all registrants. The URL link contains the questionnaire customized for your firm and will only contain the sections you are required to complete. We request that all firms open the URL link to check that the correct registration categories are checked off for your firm. Please call the contact person listed immediately if there are any discrepancies. Please note that a generic PDF copy of the entire RAC was sent with the URL link to all firms. As a result, this generic copy contains all 5 sections of the RAC and may not reflect the sections that your firm is required to complete. A few comments on technology. The questionnaire is not compatible with all browsers. Please verify that you're using a compatible browser. If some questions appear to be cut off or incomplete, the browser you're using is not fully compatible with the questionnaire. We also remind firms to save the questionnaire frequently to ensure you do not lose any inputted information. There's also an inactivity time limit, so if you aren't actively working on the questionnaire, please make sure you save your work, and we would suggest that you reopen the questionnaire when you return to it to ensure that your session hasn't expired. In order to save or submit your questionnaire, you must turn off the pop-up blocker on your Internet browser. Please check that the pop-up blocker is turned off or disabled before you start working on the questionnaire to avoid losing data. You are able to save the rack on all pages, and on most pages there is also a print option available. The print option will produce a PDF copy of your entire rack that you can save to your computer or print. You can also navigate and jump to any section of the rack by selecting the tab across the top. When saving the questionnaire, please wait until you receive a confirmation message before you close or navigate away from the page. When our servers are busy, the form may take a few moments to save. You can then use the link on the confirmation screen, which will return you to your last spot in the rack. All mandatory fields in the questionnaire will be highlighted in yellow, and you must input an answer in each mandatory field in order to submit the rack. Depending on your selection for a given question, additional fields may become mandatory. For example, in a multiple choice question, selecting the other option generally makes the comment box mandatory. In some cases, certain questions may no longer be mandatory based on your response to questions preceding it. You may see various error messages while going through the questionnaire. These will pop up if a mandatory field is not completed, if text is entered when only numeric values are allowed, or if the numeric value entered is outside the allowable range for that particular field. If your response is truly outside the allowable range, we ask that you enter the closest allowed value and then enter the correct value in the comment box with reference to what the figure is. Once you have submitted your questionnaire, you will not be able to make any changes, so please double check your responses before you submit. You will not be allowed to submit the questionnaire if any mandatory fields have not been completed or if there are any invalid responses where errors have not been resolved. Again, when our server is busy, submission may take several minutes. You must wait to receive confirmation that your questionnaire has been submitted along with a submission ID and time and date stamp before you close or navigate away from the questionnaire. The confirmation page will also generate a PDF copy of your submitted rack, which you can select to save and/or print. If your rack is not successfully submitted, an error message will be displayed, asking you to try the submission again or to call in for further assistance. I'll now pass you on to Susan.
We'd like to go over a few of the commonly asked questions from our prior year questionnaires. A very common question is, do I have to fill out the questionnaire if my firm is not located in Ontario? Firms that are registered in Ontario but have operations in other countries ask if they should fill out the rack for their overall operations or just for their Canadian operations. We ask them to fill out the general section including information about their worldwide operations, including subsidiaries, where possible, and in the specific registration category sections, just fill out the information about your Canadian operations. Include any operations with respect to Canadian clients or registered individuals of the firm that are working out of Canada. For firms that are registered in Ontario but their principal regulator is another province, we ask them to fill out the entire questionnaire for all of their operations. Firms that also might be registered with an SRO, please answer the questionnaire based on your activity related to your non-SRO operations. The first question in the general section is gathering information about your firm's revenue. Specified Ontario revenue is the revenue that you would have calculated your capital markets fee based on. Note that this question asks for the firm's fiscal year revenue, not for the year ended March 31st like many of the other questions. This allows you to use the revenue calculated for your yearly audited financial statements, and the information for this question should be the same as the information submitted to the Commission for the years 2014 and 2015. The general section also has a question about referral arrangements. You'll see that the table only has 15 rows. Although the first part of the question asks you for the total number of referral arrangements, we have only asked for information on 15. You may want to provide information for the arrangements over 15. You can add this information in the text box below, or you can send the information to the compliance email located on the FAQ document. The last column is asking what percentage of the fee received from clients is paid to the referring party. For an example, if a client pays the firm 2% of its assets under management and the firm pays the referring party 1% of the client's AUM, you would put 50% in this column. If you are registered as both a portfolio manager and an exempt market dealer, you may be confused as to what operations should be included in the EMD and PM sections of the questionnaire for the same set of clients. For example, if you are a portfolio manager firm that manages investment funds to invest your clients' assets in, consider if your clients have a managed account, as then you are effectively providing the clients with portfolio manager advice, but using your own funds, maybe for ease of operations or cost savings. The information for these clients should be included in the PM section of the questionnaire. Firms can have both types of clients. For example, if they also distribute those funds to clients that do not have a managed account with the firm, we ask them to include the details of that dealing activity in the EMD section. The Portfolio Manager section has a question related to the firm's assets under management. There can be confusion as to which bucket a client's assets belong in, individuals or institutional. Particularly, firms get confused about where to put corporations. If it's really an extension of the person's financial holdings, like a holding company, we'd expect the assets to be included in the individuals bucket. But if it's an actual corporation that would have a different investment objectives, risk tolerances, etc., it would be more of an institutional investor. The next question in the Portfolio Manager section is about products. This question is gathering information about the types of securities held in the client accounts managed by the firm. It is not meant to be an exact percentage, but an approximation. In fact, the total doesn't have to be 100%, as we'd expect clients to hold some cash in their accounts. We would like the information about all client holdings, including investment funds that the portfolio manager manages. However, we wouldn't want double counting. To avoid double counting, for example, include the products purchased within your pooled funds and not the pooled fund units purchased on behalf of your client accounts. For the question in the Portfolio Manager section about related and connected issuers, many firms mistakenly do not include the scenario of investing their client assets in their own funds. For the question in the Portfolio Manager section about the number of the firm's clients and where they are located, firms are often confused about the definition of client. Some firms count their clients by grouping family members, so a wife, husband, 2 children, and all of their accounts, RRSP, TFSA, regular accounts, would be one client. Others count clients by how many accounts they have in total. So for example, Mr. Smith has an RRSP account and a regular account. This would be 2 clients. To try to get an apples-to-apples comparison, we'd like to know the number of actual people. So for my first example, that would be 4 clients, and the second scenario, 1 client. And also, an individual's company would be a separate client. Since we're gathering information about the number of clients the firm provides advice to, we would expect an investment fund to also be a client. There's a question in the Portfolio Manager section about custody of client assets. Part A is meant to collect information about where the client assets are held. It would be very rare that a portfolio manager would have actual custody of client assets. They are 99% of the time custodied at, for example, RBC or NBCN, and the PM has authority to exercise trades in these accounts. The information at the custodians is what we're looking for here, the number of assets at each custodian that the clients use. We would like information about the custody of the firm's investment funds assets, if they're also an IFM, to be in the IFM section of the RAC. And Stella is now going to go through a few of the common questions in the Investment Fund Manager section.
Thank you, Susan. So what you're looking at on screen right now, this is the top of the first page that you're going to see in the Investment Fund Manager section. You only need to complete this certification if the firm manages non-prospectus qualified funds, or also called the prospectus exempt funds. Once you have checked off the box, you must attach the Excel spreadsheet used to collect data for the non-prospectus qualified funds. Otherwise, you won't be able to submit to the questionnaire. So if you have checked off the box by mistake, click it again to uncheck it. This question asks you to fill out the assets under management for each type of funds that you manage. If you enter a number greater than 0 in any of the rows under the heading of non-prospectus qualified funds, like what we have here on the slide, you must complete the certification like we just discussed, and you must attach the spreadsheet with the fund level data before submitting the questionnaire. Use the icons that you see on the bottom left of the slides to attach, remove, or open the spreadsheet. Click on the paperclip icon to attach the spreadsheet. If you want to replace the spreadsheet that you have attached, just click on the trash can icon to remove it and reattach the revised spreadsheet using the paperclip icon again. And if you want to see the spreadsheet that you have attached, just click on the eyeglasses icon to open it. Again, if your firm did not manage non-prospectus qualified funds, you are not required to fill out the Excel spreadsheet. For this question, we want to know if your firm is also the portfolio manager for your fund's investment portfolios. If you are, enter the amount of assets under management in the appropriate row. If you have supervised a portion of the investment portfolios to third-party advisors, do not include the amounts that you have supervised in the AUM. This question gathers information about the custodians that you use for your investment funds. If your funds have a fund-of-funds structure, enter the information relating to the top funds separately from the information relating to the underlying funds. So use one row for the top funds and another row for the underlying funds for each custodian. Also, please enter the full legal name of the custodians instead of their trade names or an abbreviated version of their legal names. This applies to the custodian questions in the portfolio manager section as well. Please make sure you provide the full legal name of the custodians so we are clear which entity your firm is dealing with. And I'm now going to pass it to Louise. She's going to discuss the common questions in the EMD section.
So we will now go through some commonly asked questions for the exempt market dealer and restricted dealer section. Just a reminder, if your firm is registered in multiple categories, in the dealer section, please only respond as it relates to activities carried out as a dealer. As well, please keep in mind that the RAC is asking for information about your firm as at March 31st, 2016, unless otherwise indicated in the question. So please respond only with actual results and activities conducted. If you would like to share your firm's future plans or changes in business activities since March 31st, 2016, please do so in the comment box at the end of the RAC. We ask about your firm's revenue and net income earned for dealer activities. If your firm does not record revenue and expenses separately for dealer activities, please answer the question with a best estimate and include a comment to indicate that the figures provided are estimates and explain why estimates were used. Assessing whether an issuer is related or connected to your firm is an important process prior to distributing or trading a given security. There are several questions in the EMD section that ask about related or connected issuers. We have provided some of the key definitions as well as links to National Instrument 33105 underwriting conflicts for your reference when completing the questionnaire. Please remember that connected issuer captures a broad set of relationships. This is an issuer where the direct or indirect relationships between the issuer and your firm would cause a reasonable investor to question the independence of your firm and or a registered individual's actions in connection with the distribution of that issuer. Please remember to look through to entities related to your firm's permitted individuals and dealing representatives when assessing whether an issuer is connected to your firm. There are several questions that ask about capital raised. Capital raised refers to the total dollar value of your dealing activities to sell, distribute, or trade investment products. If you distribute securities of your own firm and also acted as the dealer for those transactions, then this should be included in capital raised. We receive a lot of questions about who is a client. The answer depends on your firm's business activities, as some firms may have clients who are issuers of securities, as well as clients who invest in securities. Many of the questions in the EMD section are asking about investor clients in particular, and this will be specified in the question. If we haven't specified investor clients, please consider both issuer clients and investor clients of your firm when responding to the question. In terms of who is considered a client of your firm during a specified period of time, please include clients who have transacted in securities with your firm during that time or engaged your firm for services, as well as any clients where you have an active relationship. For example, if your firm earns a trailing commission on products purchased by a client, you should include them. If you routinely are in contact with the client as new products come onto your firm's shelf that may be of interest to the client, also include those client relationships. For investment products distributed, sold, and traded by your firm, we ask that you classify the type of business or industry for the investment product. We've included some of the most common industries and business types. However, if the product your firm sells fits multiple categories or none of the categories accurately describes the product, then please select Other and describe the product in the comment box. For example, if the product is a diversified pooled fund, please select Other and describe that situation. I'll now pass it over to Navena.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this beautiful sunny afternoon. I'm going to be the last person to talk to you about the RAC, and of course that's going to be the most fun part, the Fun Spreadsheet. So the first thing I wanted to mention, even though my colleague Estelle already touched on that, if you don't manage non-prospectus qualified funds, do not submit the spreadsheet. Okay, so if you have a bunch of other things, we don't want to see them. I want to see the fund by fund information on your non-qualified funds. That's my opening remark. So just a few words on why we're doing this. We did this, we collected fund by fund data back in 2014 for the first time, and the previous 2 years, 2010, 2012, we actually collected data only on hedge funds, and that was part of the OSC's participation in the IOSCO hedge fund service. So maybe some of you who are on the webinar today have been subject to that. And why do we care? Well, we decided to expand this option and combine it together with our risk assessment questionnaire so that we minimize the regulatory burden on our registrants and ask people to submit data all in once instead of separate pieces of information requested at various times during the year. Of course, we want to gain better knowledge and insight into the prospectus exempt funds industry. And we do not, I want to emphasize this, that we do not share the fund by fund data with anyone, but on an aggregate level, some of the information is available on request to Bank of Canada or other international or national organizations, depending on their goals. No, again, this is only on an aggregate level. On a fund level, we do not share anything. So for those of you who were responsible to fill in this information back in 2014, you might have noticed that I haven't introduced some changes to the questions, and I'm going to go over some of those later on. But I try to expand the investment strategies and give more options to people. Also, the geography of investments, we collapsed some of them. Some of the categories. The main investment categories, there's some changes in that, and also more detail into value of borrowing of cash and securities. And a couple of new things that we decided would be interesting to know, or we received requests from other governmental agencies to collect information on, such as high-frequency trading, asset breakdown by maturity, and some additional information on side pockets, arrangements and suspensions or restrictions that your fund might have. And for those of you who manage funds of funds, we have cut down the information we collect by about half. So the burden on the people, on the managers who have only funds of funds is disproportionately smaller this year. So I'm going to start with a brief discussion of some of the key points that I wanted to draw your attention to, as well as I'm going to touch on some of the questions that we've already received this year and some of the key questions we received during our 2014 exercise. My first advice to you would be, please do read the instructions. If you read the instructions, 90% of the questions we receive are actually already answered. The first important thing is that the survey date for the spreadsheet is December 31st, 2015. To keep that in mind, and all the data in the spreadsheet has to be as of December 31st, 2015. The only exception would be questions 10 and 11, where we ask about your total net asset value as of December 31st, 2014 and 2015. So we're asking for two data points. All the other questions have to be answered based on the your December 31st, 2015 information. Another key point is for all the questions where we ask you to report dollar amounts, please use raw Canadian dollars. Don't report in thousands and millions or any other units. Just enter the number. If you're not certain about your exact NAV, yes, you can round up, but do not report in thousands or any other units. Also, if you have any holdings or any investments in foreign currency, I would like you to convert them to Canadian dollars using the Bank of Canada official closing exchange rate as of December 31st, 2015, so that all the data is in Canadian dollars. Another question that we receive very often in the 2014 survey and this year is the question on fees. So these are questions 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I'd like to clarify again, and it's mentioned in the instructions, that if you have a fund with multiple asset classes, the fee question should be answered based on the asset class, your largest asset class, or the asset class with the largest net asset value. And of course, leading to, as a result of that, your question 33, which is the return question. Again, if you have multiple asset classes and you've reported the fees for your largest asset class, then your net return should reflect your largest asset class because the fees are based on that. Please do not report different classes as different funds. Report everything on a fund level, and only the fees should be on an asset class based on the largest one. If your fund doesn't charge any fees, you can put 0 or you can put NA, it doesn't matter. Also, the management expense ratio does not include trading expense ratio. Trading expense ratio is something separate. And also, if you are involved in any securities lending and you're paying fees for that, those should be included in the trading expense ratio. I did not include all the whole spreadsheet on the slides, but I can touch on some of the questions. Some of the questions that are not actually included in the slides. We do have an expanded option for strategies, and that is based on what kind of information I collected from the 2014 spreadsheet. And also, I've collapsed a bit the geographic breakdown buckets. And again, if you have foreign currency, make sure you convert it to Canadian. And I just wanted to give an example from the geographic breakdown. So we have North America and Europe and rest of the world and supernatural. So if you have investments that are concentrated in one country, let's say you have all your investments in China, then that's going to be rest of the world bucket. It's not Europe, it's not North America. But then if you have your investments spread out across multiple countries, then that would qualify as a supranational. I hope that makes sense. Another important thing, please, all the exposure numbers or any short and long positions, any question that has short and long option, do report everything in net numbers. So no negative numbers for short positions, just report the number. If it's short 10 million, then that's just 10 million. Because that creates issues when we're trying to blend the data into a single file. Also, the question on borrowing is expanded as well with some extra categories. I think that those are quite obvious. Another thing I wanted to touch on is the investor and portfolio question. So we had a lot of questions on that last time, and just to clarify a bit further, the portfolio liquidity, investor liquidity, and the new question on side pockets and restrictions and suspensions are all tied in together. So investor liquidity is more from how easily an investor can get their money back, so from the perspective of the investor. So of course it's an estimation to the best of your knowledge, but if you have some significant side pockets or suspensions or material restrictions, then that should be reflected also in your answer on the investor liquidity question. And portfolio liquidity is more from the perspective of the investment in terms of how liquid the investments in your fund are. So if you have a lot of private equity investments, then most probably your liquidation period would be more in the higher buckets versus if you just a purely equity long fund, most probably your liquidation is more in the 1 day or less, so 2 to 7 days bucket. And one of the new questions that we also included was the asset breakdown by maturity, and here I just wanted to clarify that this pertains only to fixed income securities. And a few other notes: please do not include seed funds, and also if you have a master and feeder fund structure, we only want the master fund, so do not include the feeder funds. And as a last point, please do not leave questions unanswered, especially some of the key questions such as strategy and exposure and the first 19 questions as well. If something doesn't pertain to you, you can just answer NA, and then I will know that it just doesn't, it's not applicable to your fund. And the last point on the question 33 on gross and net returns. So the difference between gross and net returns has to be only the performance fee and the management expense ratio of your fund. So that would be the only difference between one and the other. If you have any trading fees, that should be reflected before you even compute your gross return. That concludes my section on the spreadsheet. I just wanted to point your attention again to some of the resources that are available to you. And of course, the frequently asked questions guide that we sent out and the user guide, they're available on our website as well. And you should have them attached also in the initial email with which we sent out on the survey launch date on May 18th. Also, feel free to email us at compliancesurvey@osc.gov.on.ca. And of course, you're more than welcome to call any of the contact people who are listed in the frequently asked questions section. I would advise you to contact the person who's listed under the specific section that you have a question for, because in that way you'll be able to talk to the person who's most knowledgeable about that specific question. And that concludes the presentation portion of our webinar. Thank you for joining us.